was a bris or a kiddush. She looks like she did 30 years ago. Like I knew who she was. I haven't seen her in 30 years.
All right, y'all, you ready?
Published.
Okay, Samach Aleph tonight. So we slowly, step by step, go through the Sefer. Samach Aleph. Page Mem Zayin here, but Samach Aleph. So first, let's just read the short Sicha. We'll just read through it once, quickly, and then we'll try to break down a few aspects of it. What? It's short. 61? I'm so nervous.
Yeah, right.
You got me nervous. Here we go.
Yeah, well, okay.
Inyan Hadribi, Hanemar Gemara. Sometimes in the Gemara, you'll have an opinion from an Amora. They'll say a statement, a halacha, maybe even a drasha, and they'll ask questions on him. As we know from Gemara, that's how it works, right? You can't just say anything you want. You're going to get attacked. And then the Amora might say, Hadribi. I mean, you're right. I retract. I change my opinion. Hadribi. I go back on what I said. Says Rabbi Nachman, Zehaya Bechinas Tshuva. That Hadribi is really a bechinat, an aspect of tshuva. So he explains, Sheshov b'tshuva, this tshuva the Amor is doing, al shepogam b'Torah lomar shelo ki'inyan v'karoi. That he was pogam, he blemished in the Torah for saying something that's not the proper inyan topic or wasn't appropriate what he said. So he needs a tshuva. V'tekef umiyad shehiksha oso chaveiro. And immediately, when his friend asks on him, right, the Amora, his friend, his chavrusa, whoever asks a question on his opinion, Haven miyad, he immediately understands, Shapogam, that he blemished. Not just tos, right? Tos is a mistake. Pogam, that's a serious word. Pogam is like a real blemish. It's like a sin. Vishav v'shuv miyad, and then someone does a tshuva right away. Hadribi. So it says Rabbi Nachman ki yesh tshuva. Again, we're going to read through it once. Ki yesh tshuva shehi b'koach, because there's a type of tshuva that's b'koach. What does it usually mean b'koach? Yeah, but when we're talking about in Pnimius or in Chassidus or intention, means often potential. There's b'koach and b'poel. There's potential energy and kinetic energy. This is all I remember from physics class in 11th grade. B'koach is potential. V'adayin lo yotze lepoel. It has yet to come out to reality. Poel, the real, true, kinetic energy, if I may. Ubishvil zeh, and because of this, adam masig lepa'amim lamayla midregaso. Sometimes it'll come out that a person will be masig. We'll just use the word understand. He'll understand in a high way things that are lamayla mi madregaso. He'll understand something that's higher than his actual madrega. Masha in roila, what's not appropriate for him, because he's not at that madrega. He kidei, this is in order, shateitze hatshuva mikoach hapoel, to bring the tshuva from koach to poel. Hana, like I just said. Kana, like I said. Everybody's clear, right?
No.
Clear. You read the Sichos straight. Someone's like, we take his word for it, but what does he mean? All right, let's keep going. This is what it means, hadribi, that I return, I retract. Hainu, sha'atshuva haisa bi mitchila, that the tshuva is within me, bi, first, rak shai b'koach, but it's in a potential state, canal. V'ata, and now, yotzal po, and now it's coming out to reality, the tshuva. And in parentheses, also because he was right, he was zochet to be masik, to understand something above his madrega. Therefore, he made a blemish, saying something that is not appropriate. It wasn't ke'inyan. And then his friend asks on him, because this is something. What are you talking about? You know, Mr. Sage, Rabbi Sage. Then immediately he is awakened to the fact that he understands he made a pagam, what he said, the shav v'tshuva miyad, and then he does tshuva. Nimsa Shaydei Zeh. So we see from this, Yotza Hatshuva Mekoach Lapol, that Tshuva comes from potential to reality. Ad Kan Samach Aleph. We have a good night.
Yeah.
So what do we learn from this? Well, a person would take out of this is Hajubi in the Gemara means Tshuva. What else would you take out of this?
Bringing from the koch to the paw.
It seems like he's lowering in state, in Madrigas. And that's koach al-poa. Like he got a glimpse of the light, and then it went away. So now he's back to where he was.
What do we get out of this? What do we get out of this Sicha? Also, that's a kasha. We'll get to that in a soon. Rabbi Nachman says that it's how does he come to this tshuva from koach to poel? From understanding something that's higher than his madrega, which is a good thing. I mean, it's not a bad thing. He's understanding something greater, and yet that makes him stumble and fall, and then he gets asked on, and he says tshuva. What sin did he do? Let's start again. Yeah? We'll try. We'll see how the Dishmaya. We always try. We never know exactly what Rabbi Nachman's saying, but we definitely try to understand what he's saying. And hopefully we come out with something that we can take home and tell your friends about. Inyan Hajibi, the Inyan of Hajibi, right? To go back on a previous statement to retract. Hanemer Gemara, Zerayah Bechinas Tshuva. That's a Bechina Tshuva. Shashav b'tshuva al shapogam b'Torah. What did this? This is we're talking about tzaddikim here. We're talking about the Amoraim. These are very big people. What he did a lo sase over here. He needs tshuva. What did he do? He didn't put on tefillin. He didn't do an asay. How does Gemara work? The Amoraim try to understand with their psukim, inyanim, try to say halachas. They're learning all the time. You have one say something and the other one's arguing. That's how it goes. So every single time somebody in the Gemara says something that the Gemara asks on, or Papa gets asked on 1,000 times, so that's it. He needs 1,000 shuvas. Well, what did he do? What did he do wrong? Right? What did he say? Klap al chetz? Ta'iti? Poke him? He's poke him in the Torah. It's a very strong notion. He's an Amora trying to explain. No? What do you think? Anything? There's I was thinking about this today. I think it's a Mishnah actually. Maybe Gemara. A Mishnah in Brachos. That there were Brachos? No, Brachos. That there was some people. There was somebody who fell, I think, into a pit. Maybe you could correct me. I don't remember exactly the Maisa. Someone fell into a pit or something, and they went to Rav Dosa to daven. Rav Dosa is he alive? Rav Dosa says he's alive. He's alive, and eventually he's out. So they found out, whatever it was, at the same time that Rav Dosa is saying he was alive, Yitaka was alive, and he came out of the pit. Say, Rav Dosa, you're a Mamash Navi. He said, I'm not a Navi, I'm not a Ben Navi, but I know that when I was davening, when my davening was smooth, then I know that the person I'm davening for is okay. But if my davening comes out not so smooth, right, choppy, magum, whatever the Lashon is, then I know there's a problem. So I don't remember it was Rav Kook, but I remember that the tzaddikim, the Amoraim are tzaddikim. I mean, these are not stam human beings. We just started in Samach Aleph. We're pretty much right in the beginning. When they were big Yarei Shemayim, big Dovkei Hashem, they're Dovuk to Kadosh Baruch Hu, very, very connected. And what flowed through them was the purest, right? Ratzon Hashem, Elokus. Right? The words of the Amoraim become Torah Shabbal Peh that we all learn from, and it's Kodesh Kedash Mamish. Right? We're not talking about even the Havaminas of the even the wrong opinions of the Amoraim we're learning, and we're delving into the lumdis and trying to understand. We might not paskin like it, but you can spend 5 hours on opinion that we don't even paskin like. The Havaminas. Right? So the Amoraim, the Tzaddikim, were so connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that they became a vessel, just a straight conduit, a pipe. Right? It's Sinor. Right? Sinor and Ratzon, the same letters. Famous Remes. They're Sinor of the Ratzon Hashem. They created Torah Shabbal Peh. However, So therefore, Rav Dosa, he was so connected that whenever he would daven for somebody, if his tefillah came out pure, that means HaKadosh Baruch Hu was kilu davening through him. He knew the person was okay. If his tefillah came out choppy, then he saw that there was going to be something wrong. He could tell just from the way he was davening. But what happens if you have a vessel? Now, the whole list of vessels. But that was a little bit off. The vessel's a little bit off. There's a little bit of a blockage, whatever the blockage is. So when the light of a Kadosh Baruch Hu is coming down, it doesn't come out pure, pristine, perfect. Right? Something's going to be off a little bit. That became the opinions that were not correct. Right? This Amora thought he understood whatever it was. He thought he understood it properly. He said his opinion. He gets yelled at by all the other his chaverim, his chavrusas, the other Amoraim. He's like, oh, yeah, you're right. Hajibi, you're right. Because his vessel was off, even an ounce, he was pogame in the Torah. Meaning, he said something off, which is a raya that they're on his madrega. We are nothing at the ankles, the feet of the Amoraim. On his madrega, the very fact that he said something wrong that needed a hadribi means that he needs some kind of tshuva. There's some kind of blockage in his system. Mainly he's pogame in the Torah. Because since he's not a pure vessel, he didn't learn the Torah properly, and on his madrega, it's a pagam. Since he could have learned it in the highest way possible, and he didn't, again, his madrega, it's a pagam. And that motivated him to do tshuva. Right? So when it says hadribi, that's a bechin of tshuva. Hadribi is in response to the mistake he made. The mistake he made was an outer manifestation, making him realize that there's something wrong on the inside. Correct? Right? When he said something off, that means it must be that I'm off. Oh, if I'm off, I need to do tshuva. We'll see in a second how Rabbi Nachman explains this. So he says, "Sheshav b'tshuva al shapagam b'Torah, lo mishlo kinim karoi." Right? This Amora said something that was off. V'tekuv miyad shehiksho so chavero, and immediately when his friends asked on him, Haven miyad, he immediately understood. Shapagam v'shav b'tshuva miyad. He was pogame personally. He himself was pogame. He himself, which is like a piece of Torah himself, the Amora, he was pogame in the Torah, and therefore he needed to do a tshuva. Again, something was wrong on the insides. Good? So then Rabbi Nachman says, Vaito, he says, V'zeh b'chinas hadribi. This is what it means, hadribi. Listen to what he says. Hainu shahatshuva haisa bi mitchila. When the Amora says hadribi, paship pshat, I made a mistake in that which I said, I retract. You're right. You, Amoraim, were arguing with me. You're right. I'm wrong. I retract. I agree with your opinion. Paship pshat. That's how we always learned. And that's true. But what Rabbi Nachman's explaining here is that the retraction triggers the Amora to realize that he did something wrong on the inside, which triggers the tshuva. It's not a guy makes a mistake. You don't need to do tshuva on a mistake in learning, right? But every single time you say something and your chavrusa argues with you, you have to do a tshuva. Can you hold on a second? I need to do tshuva. Can you just give me a second? I need to go. You go to the back and start crying and doing al-chait. I don't think there's ever a person in the world who's done this. But in certain cases with the Haji with Demaraim, because they were so pure and every single thing that came out was so pure, they knew that when something was off and they got asked and they got a kash on them, there's something wrong on the inside, that was Ma'or Tshuva, Hadri B. Hadri means to return, right? I return from what I said. Hadri is a Lashon Tshuva. So the main Tshuva of Hadri B, the Panemius, is I'm doing Tshuva. Hadri B. I'm returning, right? I'm Choser B'Tshuva. There's two levels. Rak Shahaya B'Koach. But this is B'Koach. V'ata Yatza L'Poel. And now it comes out to be B'Poel. What is it? What does Rabbi Nachman mean by this? Again, I don't know exactly, but we're going to try to explain. What does it mean there's a Tshuva B'Koach and there's a Tshuva B'Poel? So again, there's two steps. The Iker is the Hadri B, Mitchila. Me, I have an issue that I need to return from, says the Amor. I need to do tshuva. And then he also after that, admits, says, yeah, Taka, you were right in what you said. Right? He says a statement. His friend says, what are you talking about? There's a first pasuk against you. Oivei, I sinned. I've done something wrong because this Amar is right. Must be I did something wrong. I did something wrong. He has to be chozer b'tshuva, and then he says to his chavrusa, Hadri bi, I also return from what I said. Hadri bi, I need to do tshuva. Hadri bi, and second step, and you talk right, that I was wrong in what I said in that situation, I retract. Right? The tshuva is in me first. Now, according to Rabbi Nachman, if you've ever learned Likutei Moharan, Torah Vav, it's a very, very powerful, long, strong Torah. He talks about tshuva. Tshuva is a big sugya. Over the years we've discussed it. Tshuva is not stam. A person sins and he needs to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll never do that again," and that's tshuva. That's like the smallest little nothing of tshuva. Tshuva is so much bigger than that. Of course, it's true. What?
Tshuva on the tshuva.
Tshuva on the tshuva. Very good. It's like 5 years ago. Look at you. It's Torah Vav talking about tshuva al tshuva. So Rabbi Nachman says a line like this. Or I'll say it first. Tshuva is a constant state of preparedness to grow. Tshuva is a constant state. It's not just a maisa. You did something wrong and I do tshuva. Tshuva is like a state of being. Not a state of being, a state of preparedness. Rabbi Nachman says, Kiles, I'm just reading one line. Kiles covered below kaf. There can be no covered without the letter kaf. We're not going to go into the amkas now. V'hakaf hu keser. The kaf is a remiss to the sphere of keser, the highest of the spheres. Right? The kvod Hashem, the ultimate kvod Hashem, keser, the crown on top of the king. The chinas ekye, Shem Hashem ekye, right? Like Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, ekye asher ekye. How do they translate it? I will be. I will be what I'll be. Right? The aleph in front of the hey yud hey. Haya, ho v'viyah. Haya was. When you put an aleph in front of it, ehyeh, I will be. That becomes a Shem Hashem ekye. So the kaf, the keser is bechinas ekye, bechinas tshuva, ki ekye, or you could say ehyeh, meaning I will be, da ana zamen lamehevi. I am prepared to be. Ekye means I am prepared to be. Then Rabbi Nachman goes on in different parts. But what does it mean? So ekye is bechinas tshuva, and tshuva means I am prepared to be. I'm always in a state, a constant state of return. If I'm off and someone shows me I'm wrong, no problem. I'll return. Tshuva means to return. Tshuva doesn't mean I am wrong. That's what the word means. That's maybe chet, apogeya, pagam. Tshuva means shuv, return. It means shuv, sit, and then return. Right? That's what it means chozer b'tshuva. I'm always, now, of course, I'm wrong isn't involved in that, but that's not the main inyan of tshuva. The main inyan of tshuva is I'm ready to return to Kadosh Baruch Hu, or I'm ready to return to myself, but let's say to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and at a moment's time, I am prepared to be better. I'm prepared to be more connected. If someone would show me that I did something off, I'm ready. So the true Hadri B is that first, the tzaddik, the Amora, is always in a state of ana, the ana zaman mehevi. Right? An Amora is always in that state. You can't say not. He's a tzaddik. He's always ready, prepared, that if, let's just say in learning, if he was proven wrong, you're right, Hadri B, I respect that, and I'm ready to change my opinion. But more than that, I'm ready to recognize that inside myself I've done something wrong, and that's the reason why I said the wrong thing. Tshuva b'koach, again, my understanding here in Rabbi Nachman, tshuva b'koach means the potential tshuvas, you're always in this state of preparedness. Because tshuva koach, I didn't do anything. If you didn't do anything wrong, you don't have to be returning from anything. Go on your way. But tshuva, yes? Does it make sense? Ana zamin lamehevi, being in that state of preparedness is a tshuva b'koach, always ready that if someone would show me that I'm wrong, I'm ready to change. And that gives the koach to the hadri bi, and saying out loud, I made a mistake, I'm ready to change. That's the poel. That's the poel. That's the actual person. That's the actual amor doing a tshuva. I did wrong. I agree with you. You're right.
There's like no cover there. It sounds like
No cover to who?
To the amor, just to the human being. Almost just side point. It just sounds like he's so like. It just sounds so pure, like literally.
Well, if you look at it a different way, is that when a person is in that state of tshuva, which is the ultimate kvod Hashem, right? To always be prepared to say to Kadosh Baruch Hu, you're right, I did wrong, this is my fault. That brings that's the true covenant of a person. Right? That's the true covenant. Not always being right, and people, kiss up to you. The person who's honest, the person who's ready to do tshuva, that's the true honorable person. So again, Hadri B again too. That's what Rabbi Nachman I think is explaining over here. Hadri B is different than is deeper than just saying I made a mistake, let me return from it. Meaning in learning, I personally made a mistake, and that brought about the incorrect statement, and therefore I'm going to return tshuva to you, Kadosh Baruch Hu, and telling the other Yischaverim, I said something wrong, let me change. So he goes into this. Because there's a tshuva b'koach v'adayin lo yatsa l'poel. Didn't come out to fruition yet, to realization yet. Ubishvil zeh. Now tshuva is a very big thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu planted within us that we always have to be doing tshuva. There's no perfect person. And the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is manhig us, this is deeply rooted in Chassidus, is that because we're not perfect, and there's no way you can be perfect, there has to be a constant process of falling and getting back up. We all make mistakes. But the goal is to get back up, because when you get back up from a fall, you actually get back up higher. If you can get up, that means you're willing to surrender, to admit, to do tshuva, right? To be davik to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Even in that place, you're talking a big person. It's people who fall and then they're stubborn and they deny it. And they say it's his fault, it's that guy's fault. So then you just stay in the pit. Just because you blamed everybody else in life doesn't mean you got up out of the pit. Yeah, it might physically look that the blame is off you, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. And all the people who really know, you're just a big loser. The real winners are the ones who take a chrayas and then get back up. Okay, I did wrong. Get back up. And you get back up higher than you were before. So Kadosh Baruch Hu puts us in this process of constantly doing tshuva. Not that we should try to make mistakes, but no one's patur making mistakes. And mistakes that tzaddikim are made, or we're talking about these, it could be the way they looked at somebody. We're not that madrega yet. Maybe we are, but the tone of your voice. And we're talking about microscopic types of, blemishes by the tzaddikim. But everybody has this process, and the more we work on ourselves, the better we become, and the less intense and open and obvious mistakes we make. We start to grow. And, okay, the big stuff we got that already. Let's move on to the higher madrigas. So Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to constantly be going from a tshuva b'koach, to being in that state of I'm ready to change, to changing, right? Mikoach l'poel. How does he do that? So one way we just said is that he can make you fall, right? You fall, you get back up. Problem is that when you fall, sometimes, like we just said, also you don't just get back up. Because you're upset, you're angry. There's gaivas, there's taivas. It's a longer process. But we're talking about Amoraim here. We're talking about tzaddikim. We're not talking about little people. So he says like this: Ki yesh tshuva she b'koach v'adayin lo yatsa l'poel. There's a type of potential type of tshuva that a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to bring out l'poel. Ubishvil zeh, and because of this, adam masig l'pa'amim l'maylo mimidragaso. could have an Amora, or it could be some person, understand something above his Madrega, which means that which he's understanding is true, but he's not a proper vessel to be able to receive such a thing, right? Like, when the teacher asks a question and he just calls him and the kid totally just guesses. The kid has no idea what the teacher's talking about and just says blue. Just like, wow, how did you know that? Right? Totally. And then the teacher says, how'd you know that? Kid's like, sky's blue. And she's like, oh, now I get it. You have no idea what I'm talking about. Right? Kid's just Mamailam in his Madrega. He just got lucky. So sometimes the Kadosh Baruch Hu makes it a person can understand something that's higher than his Madrega. Masha'in Royal is that, which is not really appropriate for him. It's a taka high thing. Who kidei? Why does the Kadosh Baruch Hu allow him to understand something higher? Because that's going to be the impetus, the trigger for this person, this Amora, this person, to go from tshuva b'koach, potential, lapoel to actual. How? Because through a person being massing, understanding something that's above his madrega, he's going to make a mistake and say something that's not appropriate. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. Right? He understands something, it's not clear, or he says it and he has no rayas for it. He's right. Right? You could have someone say he says something nice and lamdis. He says it the right halacha, and then his Rebbe says something like, how'd you get to that? And the guy says, because I saw Gemara like this, and it's like, it was like, the answers are right, but the way you got there was totally off. Or sometimes what you just said is totally off. But he didn't come from a place of a total mistake, right? I mean, I don't say that a Kodesh Baruch Hu like knocks the guy down. It came from he understood something higher. Again, we're talking about a big person, an Amora. Right? There's two ways that a person could come to the tshuva. He can fall down and have to get back up, or he could bring something down that's too high, and then he realizes his mistake. Because when he says something that's higher than his madrega, and he's pogam lomer shelo kinyan, his friend says, "How'd you bring me a rye for that? How do you know that?" Or what do you say about this? What do you say about that? And he realizes he doesn't know. He can't answer that question because he doesn't really understand, and therefore he says, "Hajibi, you're right. I'm wrong." It awakens him immediately. And he says, "You're right. I have to do tshuva because I don't understand what I just said. I'm wrong." Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to bring this Amora from a Bekoach to a Bepo. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu could knock the tzaddik down and he could speak a Lashon Hara, he could do some other sins, which is sometimes what happens. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a person to grow, therefore he sets up a certain situation with them. I'm going to get into that right now. But here he did it in a different way. More of a, made a mistake in learning. But that triggered the Amora. Again, the one who's always in the status of Tshuva B'Koach, that was ma'orer him to look inside himself first. Hajibi, Hajibi. The inner Hajibi and then the outer Hajibi. Nimsa Sha'idei Zeh Yatza HaTshuva Mekoach HaPoel, and this is how Tshuva goes from Koach to the Poel. Again, from this, making the mistake, triggering him, and bringing him to the Emes. See, we're talking here about someone who's a person who's in a state of Tshuva B'Koach. Because if you're not in a state of tshuva b'koach, you see this all the time. What happens when you say something and someone argues with you? Most often. What?
He's wrong.
You tell the other guy he's wrong. What are you talking about? Get out of here. Take a hike, buddy. You don't know what you're talking about. You defend yourself. You don't even think twice necessarily about what you said. You just know that you're right and he's wrong. Because you're not in a state of ana zamin l'mehevi. You're not willing to be open to maybe changing. Right, famous Maisa, Rabbi always says it over, and I always say it over and over an opportunity. You probably even heard me say it. He says that there was a maskil that was a big genius. And in Torah, some of the maskil were tremendous. I mean, totally off. I mean, their head was it's like Esav, like their head had it all, but like their body was totally off. So there was he would enjoy going to like mid-level Rabbanim and draining them around and asking them questions, and the Rabbanim didn't know how to answer these people, and he would trip them up. And he was getting bored of these mid-range Rabbanim. No one could hold cup with him. And he wanted to get a big fish. So he says he heard that there was this Levi Yitzchak from Berditchev, big Rav, Hasidic rabbi, hundreds, thousands of followers. I'm going to go get him. So he has, of course, his list of questions. Everything is to manipulate us, to mess him up. He's got everything ready. And he goes in and he finds where the base medrash is. And he goes in and he stops. And he sees in the base medrash there's this wall-to-wall farm, benches, chairs. And he sees Rav Levi Yitzchak just running back and forth. Like a beast. Rav Levi Yitzchak was always in his slavas. Running back and forth, back and forth. Doesn't even pay attention to this guy. The guy's like looking at this like, what? He doesn't know what to make of this. What's he doing? Suddenly, Rav Levi Yitzchak stops, walks right over to him, picks him up by his lapels, they call them? Lapels. Picks him up by his shirt, looks him in the eye, and says, maybe you're wrong. And puts him down, and then goes back to running across. The Maskell became a big Talmud of Levi Yitzchak. He said, at that moment, when the Rebbe looked at me and said, maybe you're wrong, everything broke down. All my questions were built on nothing. It's all fake. When he said that, maybe, he looked at me in those eyes, maybe I'm wrong, everything, I realized I was talking wrong. Not, this person was not in the state of Anazam and Heavy, but Levi Yitzchak made him into that state. But a person who's not in that state will build sheker after sheker after sheker. I mean, just look at the American politics, right? Or anything else going on in this world. It's just sheker after, it's just built on nothing. It's parech ba'ovir, nothing. But a person, so therefore, when someone argues with them, automatically they disagree with those who are arguing with them, because I know I'm right, and I know you're wrong. Because it's not anymore about who's right and who's wrong. It's not about my covet or my gaiva. It's not about emes. Emes is so old school, no? It's about covet, it's about power, it's about gaiva, money, luxuries, taivas. That's what it's about. So I don't really care, emes. I just want to make sure that I get paid. You know what I mean? Just want to make sure that I get my luxuries. Just don't put that in the taxes, okay? This is what goes on. But the Amoraim who are always in that status, that state of preparedness, of real tshuva, the kesedik tshuva, on a zom in the mehevi. So he's ready in a moment's time that if someone would say to him, I think you're wrong, he'd be like, Tak, you're right. You're right. And it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for an Amora. Now, it's not embarrassing. But for those, I'm not getting into this now, but the embarrassment factor is, I don't know, it's 100%, we'll say 99%, depending on your gaiv. Right? A person's embarrassment in public, wherever, is dependent on how much gaiva he is. Right? If you have a lot of gaiva, then you would be more embarrassed by certain things. And if you have less gaiva, meaning more anava, then you will have less busha. Because who am I anyway to get embarrassed? It says in the part, my older brother makes a great ha'ara. It's amazing. I love it. I always tell it over because I think it's so true. Parsha Shlach, Parshas Korach. Yeah? In Parshas Korach, this week's Parsha, Korach goes right after Moshe Rabbeinu. I mean, straight at Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? We all know. Pasuk says, Vayishma Moshe, he listens, Vayipol Panav, and he falls to his face. If you go to Parsha Shlach, last week's Parsha, the Meraglim come back, and they give a bad report, and everybody's now crying and screaming, we don't want to be here anymore. Let us go back to Mitzrayim. Pasuk says, Vayipol Moshe v'Haran al Paneim, they fell on their face, L'fnei kol kal das b'nei Yisrael, in front of b'nei Yisrael. It doesn't say Vayishma. It doesn't say that they heard. In Parshas Korach, Moshe heard and fell. Shlach, it just says they fell. What's the difference? So my older brother wants to say, when the Meraglim came and the people were arguing, Eretz Yisrael is not good, let's go back to Mitzrayim. Who are they arguing with? Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu said, we're going to Eretz Yisrael, the land is good. The Meraglim, you want to argue? People, you want to argue? There's nothing to listen to. Kadosh Baruch Hu is the emes. You're sheker. What are we talking about over here? They fell down. But when Korach was coming out, Moshe was such an anav, he was willing to listen. Maybe Korach has a taina. Maybe Korach is right. Maybe I chose inappropriately. The emes is, Moshe Rabbeinu was only a conduit, is a shlich Hashem. He was only to the Ratzon Hashem. But he listened. That maybe he somehow had some gaiva, some covet. I don't know. Maybe he had a pagam a little bit. And when he listened, he said, nah, what Korach is saying is not. I didn't do anything wrong over here. He fell to his face. Korach, you're dead. But he listened. See, that's someone, Moshe Beinu, the Anav Mikodim, Anivus. If true Anav is always Anazam Heavy. I'm always ready to be something better, to be something greater, to be different. B'chinev tshuva, to be in a state of preparedness. It's tremendous. It's a big lesson. There's many lessons that come out of this now. There's a big lesson in one seeing their own faults. If you've thought through something, whether it's in learning or your own life, you've thought through something, you're living. Very rarely does a person go back to think again about something that he already lives by. Right? You come to a certain emes in your life, what you think is the emes, the truth, and you live by that. You don't always question yourself. Most normal people don't always question themselves. But what happens if you talk wrong? What happens if you are wrong? What happens if you're living on? What happens if your path is off? But you don't know because you came to the conclusion that it's like this. Now you're stuck because you yourself, you can't get out of it because you're holding that the way you're going, which is off. You hold it's the emes. Like Korach, like Lavan, like a lot of, like the Meraglim. They were total sheker, but they thought it was the emes. How do you help a person like that? So that's where Kadosh Baruch Hu helps us out. If we're willing to listen. That from the outside we get messages. From the outside we get triggers. Like the Amora arguing with his friend. That was a trigger. I mean, the Amora said what he thought was the emes. And if no one argued with him, he would go with that his whole life. But it was wrong. And Kadosh Baruch Hu knew that this tzaddik was ready to change his ways in a moment. So Kadosh Baruch Hu sent his friend to ask a question. We have all the time we get triggered from the outside. But the question is, are we ready? Are we people who are ready to change or not? If you're someone who's ready to change, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu will send those triggers, and you'll have an opportunity to change your wayward ways. Shuvu banim shovavim. But if you're stubborn, then you're just like Acher, right? The Gemara says Shuvu banim shovavim chutz me'acher. Acher wasn't ready to change because he thought he was long gone. He already made his conclusions. I can never change. If he wasn't prepared to change, and therefore Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't give him the opportunity. Or truth is, he did give him an opportunity, but Acher couldn't see it. He saw everything the wrong way. He always heard the kids saying chutz me'acher, chutz me'acher. The kids weren't saying that. That's what he heard. So, the hadribi of life, right? The ability to change myself, is truly hadribi is also hadar, splendor. Because again, if we make conclusions and we're wrong, we think we're right, but it's going to come out bad at the end of the day. That's not good. That's not splendor. So hadribi, saying Remez, hadribi, to admit that you're wrong in learning, which is coming from a place of you're admitting that you are somebody who's maybe you did something wrong, which is the state of anazam mehevi, is really a hadar bi. It's really a splendor to me. Because a person's willing to admit his mistakes, then he can be realigned to the right path. Bring a covet to himself into a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe that's what we're not going to say.